Ayman Khan here, 4 seconds out with a sharp as ever Eddie Hearn ahead of Cameron Taylor 2 press conference. Eddie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I was a bit jet lagged. Just got back yesterday from a long run, but ready to go. Obviously, Opetire against Jordan Thompson this week, and then Wood Warrington next week. But quick trip to Dublin to announce this monster, November 25th, the big rematch, and just saw on Katie there, very very quiet and confident as ever, and Chantel Cameron full of confidence going into what is a defining moment for both fighters.
Speaking of Katie and speaking of the rematch, was there ever a possibility that the rematch wouldn't happen, considering the way the first fight happened?
No, I think knowing Katie and how stubborn she is, obviously she had a rematch clause going into this fight. I always expected her to exercise it. I think she exercised it in the ring pretty much, and it was always the fight she was going to want to take. People think that she's at a disadvantage at 140. She feels like she can win the fight at 140. There's other fights out there for her, but having suffered that defeat, I think this was always the one she was going to want.
If she was to lose the fight against Chantel Cameron for the second time, would the calls be strong for her to retire, including calls from yourself maybe?
Yeah, I think she just got asked that question in there, and I don't think she took it too well. Really? She loves to fight, she loves to be involved in big fights. I think once you start deteriorating as a fighter, you always need to look at your career. I don't think she's deteriorated at all, but that moment will come at some point in her career. I think her complete focus is on victory on November 25th. She's very confident. But Chantel Cameron, in the soundbite said she's going to hurt her. She's going to stop her this time around. And I think the fight will be a much better fight this time as well, even though the first one was a great fight. But 2 back-to-back defeats is very difficult to take, but it really depends how they come. I think arguably Chantel Cameron with that win is pound for pound number one. So if you're losing 115, 113 to the pound for pound number one, it's never, and you're competitive, it's difficult to walk away. But certainly back-to-back defeats, very tough. Always the nature of that defeat should tell you more.
What was her response in there?
She said, "Don't ask me that again," or something like that. And the Irish writer went, "Okay."
Bit of fire from Katie, good to see. What can we expect to see from the undercard of this event too?
Yeah, a lot more Irish fighters this time around. General sale is tomorrow, and there'll be an announcement, looks like tomorrow or Thursday, with the full card. Gary Cully will be back in a big fight for his career. Obviously, last time was such a great atmosphere, and the 2 main Irish fighters both got beat. Thomas Carty will be back in a big fight as well after his performance. There could be Zelfa Barrett on the card as well, and 3 or 4 other Irish fights to add that special sort of occasion to November 25th.
Special occasion not marked by the 3 Arena though, Ed?
Say that again?
Not marked by the Croke Park.
Oh right, no, I think I think you were there last time. If you weren't, it was probably the best atmosphere I've ever witnessed at a fight. And this time around, they'll be willing Katie on even more because an absolute pivotal moment for her career.
And moving on, you've been in the wars in the interviews, so obviously reflecting some questions coming on the Conor Benn situation. A lot of kind of mixed reaction in terms of Conor Benn's return to the ring. I just wonder what you think of some perceiving it to be a loophole, maybe not the straight way to return back to the ring for Conor Benn.
I mean, I don't know what else you can do. If you win the case against UKED, you're clear to box. Do you expect him just to sit there and people talk about, but he didn't answer this and he didn't answer that. He answered everything he was asked to answer and won the case. So I don't think anyone's ever going to be happy. But one thing's for sure, after you win the case and you're clear to box, I don't think you can sit there and just say, oh, sorry, let me just wait for every individual to be happy. Now, if there's an appeal and if he was to lose an appeal, both of which, certainly the latter we don't think will happen at all, then he won't box because he'll be suspended. But, unfortunately, people talk about this case was won on jurisdiction. It wasn't. And a lot of people don't really know. And sometimes the confidentialities of this case and of this instance is very frustrating because people keep calling, we want to know this and we want to know that. Ultimately, when you're in a confidential hearing, his lawyers will be telling him, and pending this appeal, you actually can't say too much. So I do think you'll get that moment from Conor Benn where he will want to tell everyone more and release more. But when you're being told by an organisation you can't, there's not a lot you can do. So I'm comfortable with the position. Don't forget the ABC, the Florida Commission, the Texas Commission, all spoke to or wrote to Robert Smith and said, can you confirm that, is he allowed to fight? And Robert Smith has no choice but to say, yes, he is absolutely allowed to fight. If he's allowed to fight, he's going to fight.
To pick up on a couple of terms used in the snippets of last week's interviews that I saw, there's words used like trial and case. Was there an actual legal trial in terms of Conor Benn's case, in terms of taking UKAD or others to court? I know he kind of mooted that he would be doing.
He didn't take it to court. UKAD wanted to, ultimately UKAD suspended him and he had to go for a hearing with UKAD and he won. And this is something that I think everybody's entitled to their opinion always. But it does still baffle me that we kind of lose sight of the fact that Conor Benn won the case against the board and UKAD. So you can't just completely disregard that. He won, he's cleared to box. Now, if you think they should have asked him something different or which you don't even know, and I'm not talking about you, but like, then I can understand that. And Robert Smith had a clever play of words on TalkSport where he says, I don't feel like Conor Benn's cleared his name. But what they should have asked him is Conor Benn cleared to box? And the answer would have been, yes, he is, because his suspension's been lifted. So, again, it's like an ongoing debate that's been going on for about 3 months, and you're never going to keep everyone happy. All you can do is go through the exact procedure you've been asked to go through. He didn't swerve UKAD. He didn't say, I've been cleared by the WBC, I'll just go and fight internationally. He went to the trial, he went to the hearing, and he won.
Has the application to the board been made now that Conor Benn has had his return back?
Not yet. No, obviously it's only Tuesday, but we will be making an application to the board for Conor Benn to fight on December 23rd in the UK. We believe because he's not suspended and he's cleared to fight, that should be allowed. If it's not allowed for any reason, then we will fight internationally again, where of course he is cleared because he has no pending suspension anywhere. So we hope we can do the Eubank fight in the UK. It's a massive fight, and if not, we'll be looking to stage that fight internationally.
Any movement on the appeal side from the board?
No news of a date of that appeal. And, when they decided to appeal, which was on the last day that they were allowed to make that decision, funnily enough, we said we want that appeal ASAP. And I think if the appeal was locked in for September, October, he wouldn't have fought. But when there is no date, when there is no guarantee that appeal is happening, he's not just going to sit around when he's cleared to fight. So when that appeal comes, he will be there, he will win the appeal. And then hopefully at that point, people will say, fair enough, let's let him get on with it. I doubt it, but they're ready to go with that, him and his team.
Eubank Jr., the prime opponent.
Absolutely. It's the fight to make. I mean, it's a huge fight. It's up there with AJ Fury. And biggest fight for Eubank, biggest fight for Conor. It's the one we want.
Pick you up a couple of comments, not specifically yourself, but Frank, fall under the eye of some boxing fans in terms of, I suppose maybe it comes across maybe a little bit of disdain for those who are inquisitive about Benn's case and the circumstances, want some, transparency. It's ticket purchasers and subscribers who are asking the questions to, the prospective people that might be buying a ticket to see Conor Benn and not really feeling confident that he has cleared his name scientifically. What do you say to kind of the maybe not meant the way the comments were said from Frank Smith, but the want to not maybe give the explanation to people who are asking for it?
I understand the argument of, you're not obliged to give that information out. I've seen a lot of it. It's very confusing. It's very scientific. I didn't really understand it. Should people have the right to see it? I guess that's their opinion. Frank's in the limelight now doing all these interviews. Like me, 10 or a dozen a day. He's going to say something silly every now and again. And I don't really agree with the way that he put it, but I agree with some of the things that he meant to say. But I think more importantly, it was down to the confidentiality. And I think this is, we haven't implemented this confidentiality within this hearing or this case. It's implemented via UKAD. He's not allowed to share the information, and nor are they. Now, when it's all over, if it's all over, I'm sure he will. But I think Frank's point is more so he keeps being asked to do all these things, and he's doing all these things and winning, but yet no one's actually even acknowledging that. It's just, oh yeah, but hang on, he didn't do this, and why can't we see that? But if you go through the process, that should be enough for people to say, fair enough, because I remember when he hadn't been through the UKAD process, everyone was saying, well, it's a joke, he hasn't been through the UKAD process. Then he goes through it and gets cleared. No, hang on a minute, they didn't ask this and they didn't ask that. You don't actually know what was asked. So yeah, it's been the most amazing sort of experience of every day. People are asking about it, and it's like, it is quite tiring. But at the end of the day, when we talk about respect for ticket purchases and fans, the reason that I do so many of these interviews and the reason I interact with them all the time is for that reason. We've always been very, very transparent with everybody, and we care about and we respect the fans. That's why I come and talk to you guys and answer all your questions, because your questions are coming from the fan base as well, and that's your job. So we're always here. We're never hiding. But when he wins again, I just want people to acknowledge, go, fair enough, he went through the process and he won. Oh, but hang on, I didn't like the process. Like, you can't. It's not Conor Benn's fault. He's doing everything that's been asked of him.
Okay, moving on. Bit of seller's remorse, maybe letting Zhang go now that he's beaten Joyce twice.
No, not really. I mean, we didn't really have anything for Zhang, and he's a good lad, and his team are nice people, but he never really lit the world on fire with us. But he's had 2 good wins. People keep asking about the Joshua fight. 100%. Now, that's a fight that we looked at when we had Zhang, but there wasn't really a lot of interest in Zhilei Zhang in China. And the only way really that fight happens is, if there's a big site fee from the Chinese government, which now I think there could be, especially with a fighter like Anthony Joshua. So Joshua's beat him before. I know he's confident of beating him again. And if there's the right offer for that fight, Joshua would have no problem fighting Zhilei Zhang. The focus is still Deontay Wilder. That fight looks like it could be February or March now. And if that's the case, he may fight in December. Would that be Zhang? I don't know. See what they come up with. But, for us, activity is key, but still Wilder is the premier focus.
What type of opponent would you be looking at for December if it's not,
Top
one in the future?
Top 10 opponent. I mean, again, Zhilei Zhang would fit in that mix. I think anybody who's credible that can keep the activity going whilst he waits for the mega fights. There's only 2 mega fights for AJ in boxing. One is Wilder, one is Tyson Fury. But in the meantime, he will continue to fight and stay active.
Talk of Zhang taking on Tyson Fury. Would you pick him to beat Tyson Fury?
I think it's actually not a bad style matchup for Tyson Fury, but one of the badder style matchups. If that makes any sense at all. I think anybody who's 19 stone southpaw heavyweight that can whack a bit. Zhang's not fast, and I don't think he has the greatest engine in the world, because he is 41, 42, something like that. But he's a good fighter. He's got a good amateur pedigree. He can punch. I think Fury beats him comfortably enough, as does AJ, but he's dangerous.
I'm sweating, by the way. I don't know if you can see. It's this coat. It's a range jacket. I don't know how you keep so cool. Just a couple final questions. Is it? Oh, yeah, well, definitely. Canelo versus Charlo, just a prediction on that fight.
I think Canelo stops him late. I think he's motivated for this fight. I expect a Canelo Alvarez stoppage victory.
Any update on Usyk-Hrgovic negotiations?
No, we're waiting for the IBF to call that fight. I think it's outrageous they haven't called it yet. They call every other fight when the mandatory is due, which that is, and we're putting pressure on them to. Obviously, there's talks of Fury against Usyk, but that's irrelevant. The mandatory is due for Filip Hrgovic, and the IBF should be sending out those letters of negotiation.
We made a deal with Japan to broadcast the fights on DAZN. What do you think will be the reaction in terms of viewership for those fights from Japanese fighters?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the DAZN only have the global rights excluding Asia, so there'll be a broadcast in Japan. It's a massive deal for us financially, big site fee deal, where it'll give us big budget for not just Japanese fighters, but international fighters as well. First show will be in January, 3 shows a year for the next 3 years, and that will be a continued trend, those kind of deals around the world as we continue to expand globally. But a big market and a good opportunity for us to take our big names from our stable to Japan. I had a message from quite a few fighters last night saying, I'm up for that, please let me go to Japan and fight. So that's a good string to our bow, and looking forward to a successful partnership in Japan.
Final one, there's the show clash again, which happens a lot in boxing, which now sees a trainer having to hop all the way parts of London to see both his fighters through fights. Part of the solution or part of the problem?
I just feel like, you get a date from your broadcaster. I mean, I don't think at any point, I don't even know who announced first. I mean, I know, no disrespect to the Caroline Dubois show. It's a very small show. I think it's their version of Next Gen, is it? What it's called? I can't remember what it's called. And our show is a really good show. It's not our biggest show, but it's the best cruiserweight in the world defending his world title and Ring Magazine Championship against a Brit. And it's an electric fight, that is. Ellie Scottney defending her world title. You know, it's a World Championship doubleheader. You've got a great fight for Chev Clark. Rhiannon Dixon against Anders is a really good fight. Jimmy Sain's debut, George Lillard, Maisie Rose Courtney. I think ours is head and shoulders above the opposition show at the weekend. But in an ideal world, there'd just be one show a weekend, not just for fans, but for us as well, because it's going to take eyeballs. Whatever way you look at it, it's going to take eyeballs away from the fight. But unfortunately, with venues, with TV dates, it's not always that easy. But I don't think it's a clash that's going to leave a difficult decision for most people this weekend.
Cheers, I appreciate it.